Tell me about the vulnerability here. Oh, when you're doing this man of honor, is it different from just the normal men meeting?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, we always laugh during the launch.
Yeah.
We have an icebreaker before every lesson. And during the launch, we also have an icebreaker. And during the icebreaker, men are always sizing each other. Is he wearing labeled clothes? What kind of shoes is he wearing? And it's always about that. And when we break out and tell them next week is when we are starting the program, they always go to the car park to see which kind of car is the other one driving. But after lesson 3, they realize we are chasing after these earthly things, but there's more to these earthly things, and that is we can't run after. How will it benefit a man to run after all the things and lose his soul? So they realize, wow. So that's when we try to tell them, write your ideology. We challenge them to write your vision, your values that you stand for, and then your mission, and then your ideology. So those 4 key things will bring a man to a place of saying, look, I must be living for a purpose, not here to eat, live, and die.
Welcome back to Adam, the podcast on godly masculinity. My name is Lawrence Namale, and on the show today, we are having a conversation with my brother, Barnabas Sam Aliku, who is teaching us quite a number of stuff, and we've learned quite a bit of things from him so far. I'm going to continue with this discussion, and right now I just want to learn from you, Barnabas. There are things you're doing, amazing things you're doing. Before we can go into them, you mentioned earlier on that you got mentorship from, is he an apostle? Simon Bevy, the Pastor Simon Bevy. That name is very prominent in Kenya. And also I think in Uganda, I don't know, but Simon Bevy mentored you exactly in what area?
All right. Simon Bevy, I was able to enter his space, his children's birthdays, the things he does, how he behaves at home. And I learned a lot from him. And so when I was young, he speaks to presidents, he speaks to ministers, he ministers to quite a number of people. So I was able to drive him around to Nairobi. Because God graced me with a driving license. I can drive anywhere in the world. So I was able to enter his space and learn a lot from him. But the key thing there was really masculinity, and which was I got to now put fingers to, because there are things that I used to meet men and say, is your wife happy? Yeah. Which other man asks another man if his wife is happy? I would meet boys and ask weird things. Have you had a wet dream?
Yeah.
Do you have is hair growing on your body? And those are things I used to ask, and I never knew it was more of a calling. And until when I met Simon Bevy, so it made sense to me on the things he was doing, reaching out to the men and to the boys, and I was like, wow, this is it. And so he was able to guide me, take me through the program as well himself. And so I learned a lot in that regard.
And in so doing, you came up with, this is Man of Honor.
Man of Honor, yes.
Man of Honor, is this a manual or is it a book?
Now that's a manual. It has a facilitator's guide.
Yeah.
And it also has a standard operation procedure. So that is a 10-week program. It has in that 10 weeks program, the first, there's a movie that the men watch together. And then the mid-season, they go for paintball shooting. They go and shoot each other. It's a team building activity. And then they have a retreat at the end, a sleepover. They go and just do a bonfire and talk the whole night and just reflect on the 10 weeks that they have been meeting and talking together. That's just one of the programs. There is also,
before we can go to the other programs, this Man of Honor thing, I'm interested in it. How is the reception?
The reception,
men,
it's amazing. Now, what happens is we have we reach out to men from every walk of life. We have had Muslims who have come to do the program.
Really?
Yes, but it is Christ-centered, and we do the altar call.
Why would a Muslim come to Man of Honor?
Oh, yes, there is a lot to learn. It's because masculinity doesn't differentiate whether you're Muslim religion. So men are going through stuff, and the book
They're looking for answers.
they're looking for answers. And the first lesson there is man in the mirror.
Yeah.
And you're reflecting yourself. Who am I?
Yeah.
What am I looking for? What's my identity? And so it cuts across. Masculinity cuts across. There is sexuality there. There is man and money. There is cause to live for. There is purpose. So all these things cut across. So men come in. We have this conversation. It's usually 2 hours.
2 hours a weekend.
A weekend. So yes, it's 2 hours a weekend. So what happens is the men come in. We have what we call a plenary speaker. So plenary speaker comes and speaks for 30 minutes and goes away. And then the men talk for 1.5 hours. So in the small groups. So we break down into smaller groups. And so these men come from different religions, different churches.
But you've not made it a Christian thing.
No, we've opened it up. It's a discipleship tool that we're using to reach out to the men and bring them to a place of understanding Christ. And so when we come together now, we cluster this. Every cohort is clustered as a cohort, and then we have militarized it just to bring men to a place of discipline.
Yeah.
So the man who leads the group is called the major. Then he has a captain, and then we pair the men into twos where we call the comrade in arms. A CIA, every man has a comrade in arms who you can open up to, meet over coffee and just say, look, I'm struggling with masturbation. I'm struggling with infidelity or whatever it is, something that you can't easily discuss deeper into the smaller groups. So that's how then we have the.
Do you have like rules of engagement in terms of,
Oh yes,
if I come to Barnabas and I tell Barnabas that there's a girl in office and all that stuff, I'm not gonna hear it.
Yes,
in another location.
Yes, we have the rules of engagement. Yes, the rules of engagement are so clear, and also we keep time. So every man who comes late has a fee to pay. A fee to pay. Yes, so there's rules of engagement, and also there's also a commitment. Yeah, we commit. You sign to say that you commit to be confident, confidentiality, no judging, be open, and you also promise to attend all the meetings, and then also to pray for yourself and pray for the members. Then of course the rules of engagement that we keep time. It's very important. We keep our commitments and we share our stories. And then we pay our bills, and then also we share with our brothers, and we leave no man behind. So those are some of the rules of engagement that
Tell me about the vulnerability here. When you're doing this Man of Honor, is it different from just the normal men meeting?
It's totally different.
Yeah,
because what happens is, we always laugh during the launch.
Yeah,
we have an icebreaker before every lesson. And during the launch, we also have an icebreaker. And during the icebreaker, men are always sizing each other. Is he wearing labeled clothes? What kind of shoes is he wearing? And, it's always about that. And when we break out and tell them next week is when we are starting the program, they always go to the car park to see which kind of car is the other one driving. But after lesson 3, they realize we're chasing after these earthly things, but there's more to these earthly things, and that is we can't run after. How will it benefit a man to run after all the things and lose his soul? So they realize, wow. So that's when we try to tell them, write your ideology. We challenge them to write your vision, your values that you stand for, and then your mission, and then your ideology. So those 4 key things will bring a man to a place of saying, look, I must be living for a purpose, not here to eat, live, and die. And so the men, after lesson 3, they are at a place of, God, I just now their place of repentance,
Yeah.
realizing that they have been running after all these earthly things and running after gadgets, and yet there is a bigger vision. There's something you have supposed to live for that will outlive you. Yeah, and many men have come. 95% of the men that come to do Man of Honor don't have a vision. Yeah. And which always troubles me, because you've taken somebody's daughter, she's in the co-driver's seat, but you're driving to nowhere. So it's always baffles me. Personally, I discovered my vision, my purpose at 35. Yeah. And I was like, I wish I discovered this earlier, maybe 20 years before. I would have been very fun, done a lot, and impacted.
I'm a purpose practitioner. I teach people. I have a book out there on purpose discovery. It's older. Discover 8 milestones on your journey of purpose. And I talk about all that stuff. When I started concentrating on pursuit of purpose for the most part, I approached one of my mentors, spiritual mentors actually, and they were amazed at the intensity at which I was pursuing purpose. And they said something very amazing. I still remember it up to today. They say, even me, I really need to do that thing. I don't know what my purpose is. This was my mentor. Wow. You understand? So when you talk about 95%, it is true. Our guest last week told us the same thing, that they could have a strategic plan for a whole organization. What was that? It was national water, as in you are leading the country at national water level, but at an individual level, at a personal level, you have no vision of your own.
Yes, I think, Loris, for me, the most hilarious one was we got a CEO who went through the program, and he knew everything about the company, the vision, and everything. But when we brought him to him, he told us, this is what we're going to do. In the next 5 years, we're going to be doing X, Y, Z. Then I asked him a very simple question. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What's your mission? What are your values that you're standing for? And what legacy do you want to leave? And he said, no one has ever asked me that. And I don't have an answer. He doesn't have an answer, but he was a CEO and he was leading an organization. And it took us back and said, wow, it gave me a mileage and momentum on doing what we are doing, because if we can help men discover their purpose, if Adam knew his purpose and the serpent came even to speak to his wife, he would have been at the place of, by the way, Genesis 1 and 2 defines us. God has told us to dominate, tender the garden, and so please don't talk to us about anything. We have a vision, is where we are going, and we have a template that we have been given. So don't distract us. Unfortunately, Adam was also in that space.
Yeah.
And the fall happens. So many of us fall in that place.
Yeah. So Man of Honor necessarily one of the biggest pillars. And this is a pillar, by the way, when I was curating these pillars of godly masculinity. Guess what? Purpose is one of them.
Absolutely.
It has got to be there. It has got to be there, where we as men of God, we know exactly. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And also it says, where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. People perish, actually. They cast off restraint. And sometimes we lack godly masculinity because we are visionless. We are basically purposeless. We are living on autopilot. We are living a life of going to school, graduating and starting to pay bills and getting a woman to marry and starting procreating kids and passing on the baton. When someone asks you midway between your life and asks you, what are you up to? I mean, what are you living for? You cannot say that. And one of the reasons that you cannot say that is because nobody taught you that stuff. So it's important, I think it's important also in the church, in God's kingdom. I think we need to go down and teach these things much more, right? And understand where a man is coming from, right? And where a man is going and what a man is supposed to.
Actually, I challenge the men that go through the program that next time I come to your house, the first thing I need to see as I enter the door is your vision
on the wall.
Yes, on your mission, your values, and your legacy as a family that you want to leave behind. And it's amazing that the men are doing it. So the children know That our vision as a family is this. These are the values we stand for. This is the mission that is fueling our vision. And this is what we stand for as a family. As the Alikus, we don't do X, Y. So, which is one thing I also leave out. I don't just teach.
You don't just teach, you live it out.
Leave it out. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of teaching, by the way.
Yeah.
The beauty of teaching is that and the beauty of even having this kind of conversations, I am never the same when I go back home, because I learn some things. That's why these conversations, they build this consciousness of what we're discussing on godly masculinity. This thing you're talking about, vision, mission, purpose, and so on. Do you realize when you look at a big conglomerate, a big organization, we look at it as a big organization, yeah, but if you narrow down to the dregs of detail, it's actually not an organizational vision.
Right.
It's an individual who had a vision that grew bigger at scale, it became bigger. So that's how important for me as a man of God to have my own vision.
Right.
But that's one curriculum that you're doing. Then there's this one. There's this 5-star dad. A very big keyword you've put there is rebuilding foundations. Why are you calling it rebuilding foundations?
Yes, I think it's in Psalms 11:13.
Yeah.
It talks about when foundations are broken, what shall the righteous do? And believe me, the statistics out there are not good at all when it comes to fatherhood. And there we are saying the mantra is that you're your son's first hero, a daughter's first love. And we realize that when you realize that many children out there, like for instance, the statistics, recently they did a census in Uganda.
I saw that.
And the statistics were so bad, but 5% of fathers are intentional. Yeah, I'm one of them. Because for me, when my children are born, I'm the first to carry them. I crack the codes in the theater. I carry them. I homeschool them. I date my children. I know each of them in and out. And I want to believe I'm one of the 5%. Then 43% of fathers, it was a one-night stand. They don't know where the children came from. Yes, and then 42% are passive fathers. They're there, yeah, but like my father who was passive. They're there, but then passive. I would say he was passive because he knew we're there, but he had started another family, so he wouldn't. Okay. Yes, so he was really a passive father. Yes, and then
I wanted to say he was absent.
Yes, so you would say he's absent. But so it's very staggering out there. So we're saying, look, guys, can we go back to the drawing board? Because if you look at, even the things we're having conversation about here in fatherhood, it takes you back to place to the root cause is fatherhood, mentorship. Because if a generation is raised well, like I think Moses writes in Deuteronomy 6 about the things we should train our children. If we go by the blueprint, and as fathers, we say, look, we are going to raise a generation, we are going to watch over them. There's some things that the values that should be carried on from generation to generation. Unfortunately, we have absentee fathers, passive fathers, controlling fathers, name it. So these kind of fathers have not passed on. So when you go just to a slum nearby here in Kampala, just go to Naguru. You'll find that 30% of households in Uganda are led by women.
Wow.
So if
that is according to the census.
Yes. So if you find that these women are, maybe there's no father figure, they have to go out and fend for food. And the children boys are being raised. Now, these boys who are raised without an absentee father, they're going to also, they're going to pass on the baton to another generation.
Yeah.
And that is where now the fatherhood issues are coming from. It's continues to, and now I've traveled around the world. Even recently I was in Texas. It's the same problem. Fatherhood it cuts across. It's a crisis. It's a midlife. It's a crisis. It's a global crisis, I would call it, because fatherhood is a big thing. Now, the Black communities in those spaces, the fathers are not there. They have gone out to either in gangs and name it. And so you find most of it in prison. And so every boot camp I do for the boys, I take the boys to the remand home. And it's not, Naguru is not far from here. But every time we go to Naguru, we do that every Christmas. We have an early Christmas with them every December. And it's amazing that 99% of inmates or juveniles, we call them, they're always boys. It's always 1% or less than 1% girls. Every time we go, it has a capacity of 149, but there's always one girl or two girls. And most of them is because of house help issues. You stole the bosses things and that kind. But the boys there, you ask them, how many of you are here because, how many of you have your fathers at home? You see, 80 and 90%, no fathers at home. And so we always had these boys and spend time with them. But just know that always our shoulders are wet because they cry because we always tell them, if you've never got a father's hug, please come, I give you a hug. All of them come. All of them come. They cry on your shoulders and you just affirming them. And so fatherhood is a big thing. If you look at society, because the foundation of every family is a father. The men out there, the men who are who have not taken up the mantle of fatherhood. And so fatherhood is a big thing. And remember, a child here is getting an example of a father, of a heavenly father, from the physical father here. So if the physical father here doesn't match up to the standard of a father, they're like, what kind of father is that? If he can give me this kind of father, I don't want to know anything. They don't want to do anything with an issue of fatherhood. Yeah. So fatherhood is a big thing.
Then there is boys to men boot camp.
Yes.
What informs this?
Yes, there we reach out to the boy child who take them away for 7 days.
Away from their parents?
Away from their parents. We call it a boot camp, boys to men boot camp, because
how old are they?
7 to 17.
Between 7 to 17.
Yes, and it's amazing. Some of them are 7 years, they're still wetting their beds.
Yeah.
And they're at a place of telling them, you have to be a man. You have to be a better man. And so we do quite a number of things there. We teach them responsibility, hygiene, etiquette, how to be a man, how to be a responsible man. And we take them through the journey of a man. We tell them, look, you're a boy right now. Tomorrow you're going to be a man. The other day you'll be a husband. And we emphasize on husband because today there are boys who are marrying boys. Men who are marrying men, and they say, I'm a boy, I'm a girl trapped in a man's body. Yes, so we tell them, please, it has to be a woman. Then we tell them, after that woman, you'll have to be a father. And that's the highest office of a man. And we emphasize on fatherhood that as a young man, you need to know. And we tell them, look, your father may not be an example for you right now, but you have to be an example to your children when God blesses you with a woman and children. And then we tell them
to correct that side.
Yes, and then we tell them, of course, the last stage is an elder. That's so they're growing up knowing, I'm going to be a man. I'm going to be a husband one day. I'll take care of somebody's daughter. I'll ask her for a hand in marriage, and they'll have children who will be responsible to make sure that they grow in a godly environment, and then also be an elder one day and give back to the community. So they are in this space. We are teaching them earlier that this is the journey you're taking, and these are the responsibilities. And of course, besides that, we tell them there are things that you need to grow into as a man.
What has been the transformation?
Oh, I say it's been amazing. We've had very good feedback on that from parents.
How long, by the way, have you been doing this?
For 9 years.
9 years?
Yes.
Boys to men.
Boys to men. And you can't believe that.
I'm sure you've grown with experience.
And as bad as that, yes, we've grown with experience. We have boys who are turned 20 who have come back to mentor others.
Whoa, they're in the same.
Yes, they are. So we call them junior mentors. So they come back and mentor other young boys on how to be better men and grow into true masculinity. So it's,
my friend, this is huge. Let me ask you, how do boys get involved in this? How do parents send their kids to you. Now, what do you have cohorts? And
Yes, we do have cohorts. We usually just share flyers to the code and also we run reels on our social media, and then that's how we get people signing up.
Okay. Yeah. Is it always December?
No, we have been having 3 of them, but of late we have shortened it to only 2. We have a summer camp, a summer boot camp, and then December.
Summer is when?
It's July.
July. You do it in July?
Do the second week of July,
and
then December.
Okay. This is a strand of 3.
Yes. Yes, Strand of 3 is a book for couples who have thrown in a towel. And so far we've succeeded the only one couple for the longest that we have been taking it, because this is people who have said we don't want to be together and we want to just sign the divorce papers. But we're like, look, before you sign the divorce papers, remember you invited us, so many of us. We witnessed all this beautiful, the decor and everything.
We ate your cake, we ate your ride.
Can we do something about it?
Yes.
Can we rethink? Yes. So it's a 12 weeks program where we give them a few assignments. It has 2 retreats.
At what point do you get these guys? At what point do you intervene? That's the question.
Now, the time we intervene, out there, there are people who tell you so and so, the wife moved out, the husband moved out. So we just say, look, if there is any couple like that, please refer them to us. And so we send out flyers, we send out invitations. So people will always send so and so, this couple is struggling, this couple, the man moved out. And so that's how we get them into our database, through word of mouth, through the social media. And when they get to us, we're like, maybe one of them will get to us. Maybe it's the husband or the wife, right? Yes. Like for this instance, it was the husband who reached out and said, my wife has moved out. And when we reached out to the lady, she's like, okay, we shall give it a try. So we started meeting them. And the first assignment was a list of the bad things this person has done.
That one is easy.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The bad things against the good things.
Yeah.
Usually the good things outweigh the bad thing.
Right. But prominently the focus of the mind at that moment in time is the bad things.
Yes. So it's very interesting that they write, and that is our first exercise. Then we sit and ask, how did you guys meet? And at that point in time, everybody is pulling out the gun, but they're like, oh, so you're asking about how we met? Okay, let me think about it. And so the conversation starts, and the next thing you know is, by the way, we need something, because we say God is the third strand in this marriage. The 2 of you are yes, but then God is the third strand. And it's interesting that one of the highest cause of adultery, of divorce, is communication. Then money, then adultery is number 3. It's communication. Everything is hinged on communication. It's number 1 cause, because people are like, you didn't tell me that. You didn't come back at 3.
Why didn't you tell me I was gonna be late or something?
It's amazing how communication is such a big thing.
But even as we wrap up this, you and I agree on the fact that if there was a pillar of godly masculinity, of necessity, this pillar is God's presence. I want to believe for you it started in Bali, in that hotel, when you're crying on this man's shoulder when he was leading you to Christ. But then thereafter, there's this pillar where we're supposed to be in constant God's presence, seeking the face of God, operating with the knowledge and with the understanding that God is our God, and so on. Having an intimate relationship with Him. So let me ask you, is there something that you can show us, you can tell us as far as that is concerned when it comes to God's presence?
Well, thank you so much, Lawrence, for that question. Yes, God's presence in a man's life is very key. And I always like answering this with the word of God. And there is a man who was a sinner, a Pharisee, who Jesus said, I'm coming to your house. And this man allowed Jesus in his space. And another woman also who was a sinner said, you know what? Jesus has gone to a sinner's home. I think I can also go. And that is in Luke 7. I like to read, if you don't mind. I'll read from verse 36. Then one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. This is asking Jesus.
Yeah.
And he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil and stood at his feet behind him, weeping, and she began to wash his feet with her tears, and wiped them with her hair of her head. And she kissed his feet and anointed them and the fragrant oil. Now, when the Pharisees who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, this man, if he were a prophet,
Yeah.
would know who and what manner of woman this is,
Yeah.
who is touching him, for she is a sinner. So this story is very interesting, because the Pharisee, who was a sinner, invited Jesus, and then also the woman, I think she was also comfortable that if this Jesus can go to a sinner's, even me, a sinner, can go there and just be in there. But the Pharisee also, who was also a sinner at that time, knew, just realizing that if this man was really a prophet, he would know. And for me, this place of being in the presence, just understanding this pillar of God's presence in a man's life is very key, because Jesus responds in a very interesting way. Verse 40, he says, and Jesus answered and said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. This was the Pharisee who had invited him. So he said, Teacher, say it, he says. Then Jesus says, there was a certain creditor who had two debtors. One owed 500 denarii and another 50. And when they had nothing with which to repay, he freely forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him more? Simon answered and said, I suppose the one who you forgave more.
Yeah.
And Jesus said to him, you have rightly judged. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet. Now Jesus comes into your life. You give him nothing. He is entered into Simon's house. He has not given him anything to clean his feet. But she has washed my feet with tears and wiped them with her hair, or the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss. But this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loved much, but to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. Then he said to her, your sins are forgiven. I want to believe so much that this is a story of so many men out there, and men who, and I don't want to exclude myself, because I'm a man myself, that at times, many times we miss out on the real deal of being in the presence of God, and not understanding that the presence of God matters a lot. This happened to Martha as well. When Jesus went to visit, Martha and Mary, who were good friends to Jesus because of their brother Lazarus as well. He goes to visit, and then Martha is
keeping herself so busy.
Yeah.
And forgetting that the presence of God, being at the presence of God and the feet of Christ is the key thing. And so Jesus is still depicting here the same thing. The Pharisee man was so judgmental, and which is so common to us as men. But the key thing here is we need to be in the presence of God. And this calls for having an altar, and for you to be the priest and to be a prophet in your home. I call them the 5 P's.
Yeah.
That as a man, you must be the priest.
Yeah.
Whereby you are leading your people. Even before your girlfriend comes or your wife, she must find you in a rhythm of being a priest. That you lead yourself to Christ. I mean, to a family altar, and say, at this time I'm praying. And then also you must be a prophet. A prophet sees ahead of time and says, even when God blesses you with children and a family, you're like, guys, when we are renting right now, in 5 years' time, we shall be out of rent. You see ahead of time. And of course, your presence matters in the presence of God. Now, let's imagine these 5 P's applying for a father. That as a father, you must lead your children. You must be the priest. You must be the prophet. That you have a vision, you're taking them somewhere.
Yeah.
That also you must be, your presence matters. The light must be on and you must be in.
Yeah.
There are places where the light is on and the man is not
It's
in.
not there.
Yes. And so your presence matters. Others will say that home, the man is there but not there. And then of course you are the protector. That you must protect those that God has given you to keep, or to your tribe. You're a protector. That's why even on the wedding day, you protect your wife from day one. The reason she's on your left is because your right hand can easily protect her in case anybody touches your bride. You're able to
exercise the 5-fold ministry.
You're called the bridegroom because you're grooming your bride. So it's very important for men also to understand that you protect from even day one. And then of course you're the provider. And provider is the big one. I always tell men, I always use the 5 fingers again, that this is the provision. If you can't provide, your spouse will forget about your presence. Because it's the only one which can touch on all this. And you can't butter bread without this. If provision is not there, try to butter bread without this one. So it's a very key thing. So, but your presence matters a lot, and it calls for understanding that God has to be in this place, and you have to create an altar. And this calls for you being the priest. And a priest, if you look at a priest's life as a priest, a Levite, as a man who is a priest, and the Bible defends a priest so much that even your wife, if another man defiles a priest's wife, there's a repercussion to it. So many things. So as a man, you must be in the presence of God, and it's a pillar that all of us have to carry, and also understand, and not be like this Pharisee man who was judging and even looking at this woman, and Christ is saying she has spent too much on the sacrifice. The alabaster oil was very expensive
back then.
And she poured all it onto Christ, and then she spends time with him, kissing his feet, wiping his feet. I want to believe those days they used to walk and there was cow dung everywhere. They always had open shoes.
Open sandals.
And I want to believe his feet were dusty because he used to preach and go from place to place. But here she is cleaning his feet with her hair and with oil, expensive oil, and kissing his feet. Who does that? And I think that is all tells you that if you're in the presence of God. And that's why he gives a parable and says, the one who they forgave more is
loves more.
Yes. And he tells the woman, go and sin no more. I want to believe he was telling the Pharisee man that as well, you are also a sinner, but you're at a place of maybe you have done less. Much as I've forgiven you as well, but I forgive the woman more because she has taken her time in my presence. So being in the presence of God as a man is very, very important. You must have a family altar. You must have a place where you also, Jesus Christ retrieved and went out and prayed. If you remember, even when he went out to pray on the mountain, and he comes back and finds his disciples sleeping, I said, even 1 hour?
You couldn't. At least that's the minimum.
That's the minimum for every believer, at least 1 hour. But he went off all the time to pray.
So
And
this
that's
1
being in the
hour,
presence
Barnabas,
of God.
is it daily? This is daily?
It should be daily.
Should be daily.
It should be daily.
So there is
It's
a man, there is a man out there who is feeling like, this idea of God's presence, I'm not grasping it, I'm not living it, I'm not doing it, but I want to start it because most of the speakers or most of the guests in this podcast are talking about God's presence and altar. At the individual level, how does a man of God institute this discipline of practicing God's presence?
I think you need to start from somewhere. I've seen people who get intimidated by how people are praying. The person you're standing next
They
to
compare
you
themselves.
compare yourself.
Yeah.
The person is sundering and you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm a heathen.
Yes, I'm a heathen. But even Christ tells us, Jesus talks about all the things. If there's nothing that is new under the earth. Even when he tells us when you go to pray, don't pray like, even if you're fasting, don't fast like others who show it on their face that they're fasting. When you pray, don't judge others and say that one prays more. I think because he has spoken more. I think it's a place of taking baby steps.
Okay.
It's a place of understanding that God loves you. The first thing is God loves you the way you are. He knows your heart. And you can start from anywhere. I've seen people who say, Pastor, I don't know how to pray.
Yeah.
I always tell them, get a chair.
Yeah.
Put a chair in front of you. And close the door. Imagine God is seated there.
And
Start
talk to him.
Talk to him. Just tell him God. Even yesterday, you remember, even when I left this place, I didn't have money for fuel. And I went through this. I went through this. I felt like this.
So
Talk like Christ
like you're
is
talking to
God is seated there listening to you. And the next thing you know is you've done 25 minutes, 30 minutes. You're just narrating what you going through, what you went through. So it's a very, it's a place of starting from somewhere. And who knows after that you're in a place of doing it for an hour. But one thing I've done for me personally is I play music in the background.
Something to change the environment, the
ambience.
Yeah.
There's, if you go on YouTube,
Atmosphere.
there's prayer music. You can download prayer music on your laptop and just play the music in the background. It's amazing. You just start talking and reflecting, and even maybe putting a chair in front of you and talking. And the next thing you know is 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah, and like me at home, it's the children who come knocking and saying, "Daddy, are you okay? Are you?" And you're like, "Oh my God, I've done 2 hours. I've done 1 hour." So it's in the place of reflecting, and then also making yourself comfortable. I find myself in my bedroom, not with tight clothes on me, just relaxed and just reflecting. If you have a big house, create a room for yourself where you know that this is my closet. It's my closet. It's where I lock myself. The world has beaten me out there.
Yeah, but when I come
back home, I am in my closet. I'm like, God, that deal didn't go well. Yeah, but I know you're going to do something about it, and you speak to yourself. And I think that is a key thing for every person out there. You can start from somewhere. You don't have to compare yourself to
the idea is not how many minutes you're spending, how many hours you're going. You're not competing against the hours.
Yes.
What you're doing, you're constructing a relationship with God.
And that's what God created us for. God is a God of relationships. He created us for a relationship. Yeah, that's why the Bible says every evening he came and chatted with Adam.
The cool of the day.
The cool of the day, he would come and say, "Hey Adam, by the way, how was the day?" I want to believe Adam was like putting the chair there, and he's here and say, "God, by the way, today, you know what? Eve upset me. I tried to name the lion, and he wasn't taking the name. I first gave him this name, and he didn't like it. And this is how it went. I went on to name a buffalo, and and they had a conversation during the cool of the day. So in that way, when you just have that imagination that, imagine God is seated there, and I'm here, and we're having a conversation. By the next time you look at the clock, you'll be amazed at
and the most amazing thing is not just that the hour has gone, but it's the closeness you've gotten to him.
Absolutely.
And the various nuggets you've downloaded.
Right.
In God's presence. There are sometimes I normally tell people, keep a notebook and a pen just around the corner.
Right.
Because in God's presence, a nugget might, especially for those of us who are in the content creation, we're creating content and all that stuff. God whispers something, and immediately that has been whispered. Once you've finished your session, you just take some time and journal. Actually, there's an idea of journaling your prayers. Write down what it is that you told God about, and so on and so forth, and you'll be amazed at the end of the year or at the end of a season when you start going back and looking at the journey you have been on with God. It's just an amazing thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
So last question, even as we're talking about the presence, it's an obvious thing, isn't it, that outside of the presence there are pitfalls for a man. If a man is segregated from the presence of God, whether you can be born again and you're away from God's presence,
right?
Isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And what is the danger there? What is the danger when a man is outside of God's presence? And I'm not talking about a man who is a sinner. I'm not talking about a man who is an unbeliever. It's a man who is born again, yes, but the idea of closet relationship, intimacy with God is basically non-existent.
Yeah, Lawrence, that's a very good question, especially for the men out there. You have to understand that there are traps of masculinity.
Yeah.
And the traps of masculinity, one of them is, of course, there'll be women, there'll be money, there'll be the male ego. You'll feel, oh, I can do this. You'll feel I can do this. And usually when that happens, it's very interesting that these are real things that every man out there, at your back, there is a target. You're a target of the enemy, because he knows if he can short circuit one man, if Jacob was short circuited at his early age, when Esau was after his head to kill him, then we wouldn't have Israel today. There would be no Israel today, because we see a nation out of Jacob. And so every man out there, you have to know that at your back you have a target. There's a target sign on you. The enemy wants to put you down. And the fact that the enemy wants to put you down is that there'll be traps that the enemy is going to throw at you, just like a cobweb. The insect, when it falls on there, the enemy comes and entangles you. And as men, we all fall short of God's glory all the time.
Yeah.
But if you're not in God's presence, and if you're not in a place of accountability, then a lot of things happen. I've seen, for instance, as I'm a pastor, and I've had churches where there are no small groups.
Yeah.
I know Watoto has small groups. Mavuno has small groups. And other churches that I know around have small groups. There's some churches that don't have small groups. And there's some church members who don't want to be in the small groups. Because in the small groups, they ask you the right questions. In a cell, the cell leader will say, I saw you with 2 girls the other day.
Yeah,
and
what was up?
What's up? What's up? What's happening? Man of honor, we cluster them in 2 cohorts.
Yeah.
And these men ask themselves hard questions. They ask themselves hard questions. They ask you even the bedroom issues. They ask you everything. So accountability, if you're in a place of isolation, you want to do life in solace. I mean, in isolation, and you don't want to be involved in a group of people, then just know that you even if you look at the animal kingdom out there, or the Discovery channels that you're going to watch about the animals, the lions will go for the isolated buffalo.
Yeah.
And so many men would like isolating, and they don't want accountability. But I would just like to encourage men out there that you can. There's some men who have told me, Pastor, I don't have friends. I've failed to make friends. And I think it starts with you. Can you count yourself as a good friend? Can people count on you as a dependable man? Which in the book I write about the man code.
Yeah.
We call it the cadate.
Yeah.
That you have to live for a cause. You must be available. You must be dependable. You must be encouraged, and then also you must be teachable. The cadate. So you find that there's some men who are not in a place of accountability. They're not teachable, and when you isolate yourself from the presence of people who can hold you accountable, the presence of God, then you are vulnerable to the traps of masculinity. And some of them, it's the women out there who can easily, even as a minister, it is said that you can never put butter next to fire, it will melt. Yes, something can happen. Something can happen. Like me, I have boundaries.
Yeah.
Like even counseling women, my wife has to know. If not, she should be on the phone at one point in time. Just know that I'm counseling a female person out on the other side. So it's very important that we get to understand that as a man, you need to be in a place of accountability. Because get 1, 2, 3 men. I have 3 men who can ask me anything, and my wife knows. And we meet once a month, and my wife knows. There are 3 men. They ask me anything, right from the bedroom to business to everything. And our wives know. When we meet, we switch off our phones and talk. And at times we talk for hours.
Rare men, isn't it?
Yes.
As in, is it easy to find such men?
It's not easy. I started it. And when I started it, all of them were uncomfortable.
Yeah, of course.
The way I could come and tell them.
So it's an idea of building it.
You build it.
It's not readily available.
Yes, you just have to build it.
Okay.
I met these 4 friends. They're all married. They're over 15 years in marriage. They're my peers. I'm like, guys, I want to do life with you. I know their values. And I'm like, guys, we're going to be meeting once a month. Now, if I tell them, and I think next month we are not going to meet, they're like, no, but what do you mean? What's the problem? But before,
it
was just me sharing.
Yeah.
And then they realized I'm learning a lot from them.
Yeah.
Then they all started pouring out. Now,
nice.
When we reach there, like, who's going to start first?
Nice.
And when we start, we all go on and on and on. Yeah, so it's very important to be at a place of finding accountability.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this is that you're going to grow old with these guys.
Yeah.
You're going to grow old with, imagine 30 years from now, and you're there for each other.
Yeah.
If in any predicament, like maybe one of you goes, the rest can stand in for the family. So it's very important that we have even the bigger picture, but also to understand that the pillar of being in the presence of God is very, very important. And God is just teaching us about relationships. If you isolate yourself from relationships and you want to do life solo, and then you take yourself away from other people, then you're prone to the traps of masculinity. You can never do life alone. You can never run alone. If you want to run very far or go very far, do it with a group of people. So
awesome.
I would encourage the men out there to do life with other men. And it's not difficult it may look difficult to find the group of men that you can do life with, but you can still, and we have taught this in Man of Honor that guys do life with. So these men we cluster them into cohorts and they do life together. We always, after the program, we get a cohort leader, and we task them to meet at least once a month, not to discuss football, but at least do barbecue together, and now ask yourselves the hard questions. And what can you do together? Can you serve together? Can you do a business together? Can you do a project together? Can you reach out to other boys in the remand home? So there is a task that every group is tasked to do.
Awesome.
So, and that takes you back to the presence of understanding that God is in charge of all the things, because we can't do life without Christ. And he created us for a relationship. So it's just like having a phone without a SIM card.
Yeah.
And without a network.
Yeah.
Then there will be no communication.
Yeah.
You can't. God has created you, and he has placed something inside of you, and that SIM card is the spirit. You need to connect to
awesome.
God. If you take it out, then you're here to eat, live, and die. And we shall forget about you. But there should be a relationship. God has created us for a relationship with Him. Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. I think you've said it all. Right. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the close of today's episode on Adam Podcast. It's been an exciting journey, even as we've just been discussing with Barnabas Aliku, who is running quite a number of programs with a passion of speaking into the masculine soul, at least from God's perspective. And man, kudos for what job you're doing in that area. May God bless you, and may God bless the work of your hands. What I want you to do at the end of the day is just, I know there is a man or there's a woman who wanted to connect with you one way or another. They wanted maybe the strand of 3. They wanted maybe to do the men of honor, or they wanted to do the 5-star dad, or maybe they wanted to do the boys to men, whatever. How do they get in touch with you, Barnabas?
Yes, I have. We have a website, and then also we have offices in Chira.
Yeah.
But our website is www.pff, which stands for Petra Families Foundation, -ug.org. Yeah, they should be able to get the details of how they can reach out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
God bless you guys. God keep you. Next week, we're having another guest. We're continuing with these discussions on godly masculinity. Remember, this is God's thing. It is not ours. And so the closer we get to Him, even as we're doing in this season, the better. If you do not know how to cultivate God's presence in your life, start now. Like we've learned today, it might not be rosy to begin with, but as you keep going, it keeps becoming better and better and better, and stay there. Bye-bye, and God bless you.